were signing a promissory note to present America across the small land. This note was a promise to all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as the citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad sex. Sexes has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great cost of opportunity of this nation. So we come to cash this check, a check that will give us the funds demand, the riches of freedom, and the security of justice.
I grew up completely engrossed in Black American culture. From a Black family, I grew up in a Black neighborhood. I was raised in a Black church, and with the exception of elementary school, I attended majority Black institutions from preschool to college. All my friends are Black. My extracurricular activities and interests tend to fall in line with traditional Black values, and I'm naturally very comfortable and feel at home in a Black environment. To my surprise, on a rare occasion that I share my background with people, some have assumed that I grew up in a poor household, in a disadvantaged neighborhood with a failing school system, and that I've somehow overcome adversity to make it to where I am today. I would quickly become offended because I felt like I was being judged and profiled based on negative stereotypes of Black Americans. The truth is, I come from a highly educated family. My mom holds a PhD. My neighborhood is upper middle class and filled with a number of Black professionals that have been influential in the fields of agriculture, architecture, education, engineering, law, medicine, and political science within my hometown. The majority of Black middle school, high school, and university I attended boast its historical significance in the state of North Carolina, in places where I strive. I went from being an average student with low self-confidence, fearful at the thought of being engaged in any type of activity that would introduce me to new groups of kids my age while in elementary school, to being an A honor student, athlete, elected class president, involved with a number of activities, all because I gained confidence from being in the classroom filled with students that looked like me, and that also performed at a high level. As much as I love, strive, and did well in my environment, I'm now faced with the reality of how sheltered I grew up. Being in Unalaska marks the very first time in my life while I'm in a non-Black environment. For the first time in my life, I worship along with red, yellow, brown, and white people on Sunday mornings. For the first time in my life, I'm engaged in lives of others that have different political views than me. For the first time in my life, I recognize the depths of intelligence and realize one doesn't have to have a college degree in order to be smart. For the first time in my life, I lived in small town America, and now I know people here are as gifted and as talented as people in the big cities. For the first time in my life, I'm exposed to culture outside of Black and white. I love the fact that when I think of an all-American family, I think of the family of Joey and Jenny Fernandez. I enjoy hanging out at the home of Julio and UW LeClaire for the holiday gatherings. For me, that feels like home. And I'm honored that Jim, and Charlene Shashnikov gave the okay for their son Luke to ask me to be his usher. For the first time in my life, I live in a community where people come up from across the United States and globe. We all know we're different, and it's okay. Moving to Unalaska has by far been the toughest decision of my life, but one that has truly been the best. By stepping out of my comfort zone, I've now been exposed to true cultural diversity, and I've also learned a lot about myself. I was once offended when I thought I was being stereotyped from others, and then once I got here, I realized I was doing the same. I used to think that anyone that was white and Republican was automatically racist. Troy Bundy changed that for me. I used to think that bigger was better. The Unalaska City School District changed that for me. And I used to think that people in small towns really deep down inside desired to live in larger cities. Jim Shashnikov changed that for me. Unalaska has truly been an experience that I thought I would never have, and has built up to be more than I thought it would be. Tonight I welcome you to the 3rd annual Unalaska Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration, celebrating diversity. As you look at the various faces of people in this room, hear the many languages, listen to the experiences of the speakers, and watch the different talents of performers representing cultural, geographical, and spiritual diversity in our community. I would encourage you to step out of your comfort zone and embrace the dream of the MLK. Welcome.
There are many different beliefs found in different cultures, but there is one belief that can be found permeating just about every culture and spread from one area of the globe all the way around to bridge different cultures and bring us together, and that's Christianity. We believe in freedom, we believe in equality, and we believe in spiritual freedom. And the spiritual freedom is what we're here to tell you about today. We believe that when you praise God, when you pray to Him, it has the power to break bonds that hold people's souls and spirits. And we are here today with our dance team to show you how you can bring that.
citizens possess. All Americans. They want no reservation. They want complete equality, social, economic, and political. And no force under the sun can stem and block and stop this civil rights revolution which is now underway.
Oh God, that for those who have eaten in their hearts, to touch their hearts right now, oh Father, and somehow fill their hearts with love. You know, God, make this land in which we live be a land of plenty and a land of righteousness. Oh God, and may we recognize this land, a land of freedom for every race.
Hello, my name is Jeff Tuckerl. I'm the high school history teacher over at the school. I've been teaching there since 1990 and was kind of searching for an introduction to start out and realized that the best introduction is that I grew up in the exact opposite world of Dee. And here we are both at the same place for one, wearing the same shirt for two. Not planned. But I did grow up in the western suburbs of Chicago in a completely white bread neighborhood where cultural diversity meant that, like, I had some Italian friends as opposed to different races. But then I moved here after a brief stint in the Army. If there's anything that's going to culturally diversify yourself, I think it'd be the military. But I came here in 1990, a very different place. If you can imagine an entirely new staff trying to pronounce the majority native names. I do remember struggling with Lekanoff. I think we had 7 periods at that time, and I think I pronounced it differently each period. But at that time, the school was about 1/3 of what it is today. It was majority native. It was, the other part of that would have been pretty white. And here comes this kid from the western suburbs trying to be culturally sensitive. Thank God I had a lot of very open and nice, accommodating people. Ray Hudson, for one. I see the Svarney family was very open to everything, and just really kind of open to allowing us into that culture, which for me was very cool as a historian. And things were chugging along, and then the school started growing, and I'll never forget our first student who came who spoke no English. 1992, the Berlin Wall had fallen. Unalaska was one of the first, believe it or not, one of the first American communities that actually flew to the former Soviet Union. We flew a contingent over to Petropavlovsk, and we were the first, I didn't get to go, but we were the first non-Soviet, non-Russian group of people that was there. And one of the results of that was that we had an influx of people coming back. Well, beginning of the school year, in walks a young man, sophomore, Sergei Rorvik, spoke no English, had some in school. In those days, an ESL program was not even on the radar screen. That didn't exist. Kid thrown in my class, and they said, here, teach him history. Teach him world history. Well, I can't imagine having been in his place at that time. Not only is he in a new country, a country that he grew up fearing, you know, 15-year-old kid in the Cold War. He didn't just come to our country, he came to Alaska. And to think of somebody, a lot of you did it. You came here thinking you're coming to New York City or coming to America, to the cowboy lands, and you end up here. And they put this kid in my classroom and they tell him, you know, do good work, and they tell me, teach this kid. And for that first, I want to say the first semester, I gave him a big, thick picture book on the history of the 20th century and put him in the back of the room and said, you know, let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. And he sat back there and he looked through that picture book and saw things that were familiar to him, and every once in a while he would try to relate things. Slowly but surely he got the language. Well, that was one kid. That was about 1992, 93. Today, I was just talking with Ms. Beatty, our school stands at about 70% English as a second language, roughly, especially in the upper grades. That means that 70% of our kids at home essentially speak a different language than at school, which you can probably figure out means they come from a completely different place. Country. I tried to sit down and count how many students I've taught in the last 21 years, and I stopped at about 400. Had a ways to go. I tried to count their different countries. I stopped at 19. I did realize that in the high school anyway, we have not had one single student from the continent of Africa. We've had them from every other continent, probably Antarctica, everywhere. It's just been great. So here I am as a teacher, trying the best I can with a great staff community. We instituted an ESL program where we get a little help, we get some guidance, we get some strategies to help kids who come in from a completely foreign place. I'm a fast talker, I'm a slang user, I'm a joke guy. I can't imagine somebody not knowing the language coming into my classroom. It's just inconceivable to me. I try to slow things down, and one of the things that I always try to do is I try to always ask the students, you know, if we're talking about horses, I'll say, how do you say horse in your language? If we're talking about buses, I'll say, oh, do they have buses where you're from? And I always try to learn 2 words in every language that I can throw back at the kids, and that's, you're crazy, and you're cool. So I can, to the Vietnamese kids, dinky dao, to my, I want to say, so we have so many Filipino dialects that my good friend Boam, she says, oh, you're crazy, Boam. So what that does is it teaches the kids a couple things. One, that you value their culture, that they have something to teach you as well. And 2, it's a way to kind of break the ice with the student and kind of let them know that you're not this, you know, strict formal person. And so my favorite story in this is I had 2 or 3 young girls, teenage girls, giggly. You know the type. Everything that happened in the classroom, they giggled. They giggled between themselves, they giggled at everything that happened, and they happened to be Japanese. So I asked our superintendent, I said, how do you say crazy? How do you say you're crazy in Japanese? I said, baka. So every day I would walk in and they'd start giggling, and I'd look at them and say, you're baka, which would of course make them giggle even more. But there was a girl in the corner, she called herself Diane, her real name was Wee, and she would always give me a very painful look whenever I would call these kids baka. And one day, she was a very timid person. She raised her hand and she said, why do you keep calling them cows? Now I've been accused a lot in my teaching. I've called some kids some names, but I've never called a kid a cow before. And it came out. I said, I'm saying that they're crazy in Chinese or in Japanese. And she looked at me and she said, no, that baka means cow. And I said, really? In what language? And she said, well, in Tagalog or a different dialect. And I said, really? Oh, I thought you were Vietnamese. And she says, well, I was raised in Laos, but then I moved to Vietnam. And then we ended up in the Philippines. It's a 15-year-old girl. And I looked at her, I said, which languages do you speak? And she said, yeah, all of them. Well, that touched off a very interesting conversation because baka, cow, caribou, which is water buffalo in Tagalog, but then there's some Spanish thrown in there. And then next thing you know, we had this conversation in our classroom where we learned that the Philippines had borrowed words from the Spanish, so the Mexican kids got involved. This poor Laotian girl became the center of attention, which is something that she never wanted in her life. And we just had the most amazing conversation. And the most amazing part was, there was absolutely no judgment as to you're this, you're Mexican, you're Filipino. It was not at all a standoffish thing. It was a cool thing. Really? And here I am. You know, they say, right, if you speak 3 languages, you're multilingual. 2 languages, you're bilingual. In 1 language, you're an American. I am an American. And we must have had, I think we had 7 languages spoken in that classroom that day. Sharing, finding out what was cool, finding out the borrowed words. And as a teacher, time for me to step back and really just revel in this amazing mixing pot, melting pot we have across the street. And it really makes me proud to have kind of evolved with them. And so to go back to my white bread suburb and start talking about my students and where they're from really fills me with a sense of pride and a real sense of that we have something really special here. And the best example I can use for that is our main competitor in the state, Wrangell. Wrangell beats us in those scores, you know, stupid scores that we always have. They always beat us by like 1 point. Their ESL percentage, correct me if I'm wrong, 0. We're pushing 70%. That's an attestment not only to the teaching staff, Miss Beatty over there, and Pat, our ESL people, but just the welcoming attitude and the non-judgmental attitude of the whole community, so that somebody from a place like Laos can show up here, or the Philippines, or Mexico, or Ecuador, or Panama, or Dominican Republic, or wherever everybody's from, that they can come in here and have absolutely no barrier to unifying us and moving on to that goal of education. And of course, Wrangell, hate them, but I think the one final thing, searching for a conclusion, I think the one unifying factor this month is that everyone got sick together. So anyway, thank you very much for coming, and thanks for letting me speak.
My name is Sharon Zabroni Livingston, and I happen to be a very lucky community member who gets to live here in Unalaska, Alaska. The concept of celebrating diversity encompasses acceptance and respect. It means understanding that each individual is unique and recognizing our individual differences. It is about understanding each other and moving beyond simple tolerance to embracing and celebrating the rich dimensions of diversity contained within each individual. Now, I kind of always have been accused of having a Pollyanna attitude about the acceptance of various cultures and diverse people in Unalaska, but you'll have to kind of forgive me because I believe I suffer from millennia of a learned behavior here in the Aleutian Islands. Studying one culture and how they have survived and adapted can give you an invaluable insight to being able to embrace cultural diversity. So, in the spirit of celebrating a vibrant, multicultural nation, united in justice for all, let us take a brief look, a snapshot, if you will, at how the indigenous population of the Aleutian Islands put in place, through perseverance and action, the framework for our little diverse world of Unalaska. Pre-contact figures for the population of the Aleutians prior to Russian contact is quite a disputed figure. When they first started out, they thought that the population was somewhere between 12 to 15,000. As archaeologists and anthropologists studied more and more, they have come to a more educated guess of some place between 17 to 25,000, which may not seem like much to many people. You know, the world is a huge place, but for a region that is so incredibly difficult to live in, it was considered an extremely dense population. But no matter what the number was, whether it was 12,000 or 25,000, Documents list the population of the Aleutians in 1800 at the amount of 1,800. So it was a near decimation of the entire population of the Aleutian people. During the ensuing Russian contact years, the Unanga people learned to adapt. They had to learn to adapt to survive. They learned a new language. They adopted a new religion. And by the end of the Russian era, they had actually ended up making a place for themselves outside of the slavery that their first 50 years of contact had brought them. They actually became partners with the people who had enslaved them. When the United States purchased Alaska in 1867, the Unanaks were once again forced to give up all that they had earned back for themselves during the Russian era. No longer were they partners in the economy. They were given to the United States in a treaty as uncivilized tribes. A doctrine of assimilation was pursued by the Americans, and the Unanga began their lives, once again, learning another new language, but being forced to drop their own. They had once again to prove themselves as masters of their environment in order to perhaps at some point be allowed to be a player in their own homelands. But possibly the most devastating time in history for the Unanga people during the Americanization was when their way of life was nearly disrupted during the evacuation during World War II. A handful of evacuees still live here in Unalaska today, and more throughout the state, and actually spread throughout the United States and the world. They bear witness to a time of unbelievable upheaval and hardship, a time in history when the Aleutians were bereft of its Unanga inhabitants for the first time in 10,000 years. Excuse me. So on July 19, 1942, all natives from Unalaska, or persons as much as 1/8 native blood, excuse me, were compelled to go, evacuated for their own safety, and boarded the SS Alaska. Now, I myself have always known about the evacuation because my mother, Gertrude Barney, always talked about it, which was, when you look back at it, very, very healthy for her to be able to do. But in my wildest dreams, I could never imagine how huge this evacuation was for the people. I always knew that my mother and her sisters and her brothers and her parents had absolutely no idea where they were going when they stepped aboard the boat. I'm sorry. And in fact, I went through my life and had no idea until I read a book called When the Wind Was a River, the Allied Evacuation During World War II by Dean Holt, that nobody actually knew where these people were going when they stepped on those boats. The captain of the boat had no idea. The Alaska Indian Service didn't know. The Bureau of Indian Affairs had no clue. Neither did the Fish and Wildlife Service, which was really kind of in charge of the people in the Privileges. The Alaska Territory didn't know. The Department of the Interior had no idea. Not even the Army and the U.S. Navy knew where these people were going when they put them on these boats. And so in this fashion, 881 Unanga were taken from Atka, Mikulski, Unalaska, Orca, Maquishan, Kashida, St. Paul, St. George. And for up to 3.5 years, they were forced to live in abandoned fish canneries, abandoned gold mines, makeshift camps, and pretty much were left to fend for themselves in strange lands dreaming of home. This time frame once again impacted the population of the Unanga. The old and the young were the most at risk, of course. Sickness and hunger plagued the groups situated throughout southeast Alaska at Burnett Inlet, Killisnoo, Wards Lake, Hunter Bay, Wrangell Institute. Conditions at the camp were primitive and unhealthy, and the food was extremely meager and strange. The environment was cold and claustrophobic with the trees. So they were very, very hungry, very, very cold. And those things probably attributed to a lot of the deaths that they experienced, as well as contact with outside diseases. Finally being allowed to return, with populations depleted due to death and attrition, the Aleutian residents found many of their homes looted and destroyed. For Unalaskans who arrived home on April 22, 1945, they found many of their tiny village area homes with the windows torn out, the doors pulled off, missing boats, missing engines, missing subsistence gear. So much damage had been done to the homes and stuff that many of them were not even inhabitable. The salmon and herring and cod fisheries that had supported them prior to the war were virtually non-existent. And a period of extreme economic depression took over. Also overtaking the Unangak was a shadow of shame that they felt at being so disregarded by their government during the evacuation and return. They had stepped on those boats as an act of patriotism to their country, and nothing was done to replace all that they had lost during the war. And so they kind of became silent about it. During the late 1970s, Unangan leaders began to question the treatment of their people and began a long battle to prove the hardship and unfair treatment that was forced on their people. This was also the time that the Unangan people, in a need to testify, began to verbalize their experiences of evacuation. It wasn't until the passage of Public Law 100-383, passed on August 10, 1988, that the Unangan people received financial restitution and an apology from the U.S. government for the hardships they had suffered. In the ensuing years, with the passage of ANCSA in 1971, with the re-recognition of tribes in 1989, culture and tradition once again took center stage. But the battles were not won by the Unangan people alone. It really took partnering with governmental agencies, senators, teachers, and interested citizens to make a statement about Unangan culture and traditions again. The Unalaska School District was really instrumental in helping to house the Unangan program in the school system, which for many years allowed the study of Unangan culture and language, not only to the indigenous students, but to all students within the school. With a special quality of people who chose to make Unalaska home and the philosophy of including all in the program, Unalaska's youth were really fortunate to learn at a young age how to respect a culture that was not their own. Learning about and respecting one culture opens the door and opens minds. I believe that our ability to truly appreciate and celebrate diverse cultures stems from the generosity of those who chose to share, maybe one small word.
some now, some later. We're going to start out with just a quick drumming sequence and then go straight into Pinoy Gafto. Does everybody pretty much know the story of Pinoy Gafto? It's the story of the hunter who was no good at hunting, and so a giant octopus helped him become a better hunter and made him promise to bring him sea otters, and then the hunter broke that promise and the octopus punished him. So we'll get things started. Magai?
equal rights and employment for Negroes. Instead, twice that many, including 30,000 white people, converge on the Washington Monument where the activities are to begin. The bus caravans from the Deep South, the West, and the North reach their destinations on Constitution and Independence Avenues and let off their passengers for their one, for many their only day here in the beautiful parkland south of the White House. The mood of the vast crowd is relaxed, friendly, and dignified, but above all, it is determined. Though there is much of the feeling of a church picnic, and indeed the singing of gospel hymns is everywhere, this is no picnic. It is one step in a struggle for equality under law that began with the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation a century ago, and has been rapidly accelerating in the past 3.5 years. Washington has seen far larger crowds and gaudier celebrations than this, but these have been spectator crowds. Never have so many people participated in an event in the capital, and with such a feeling of hope and friendship. There have been other marches on Washington too, but none with so little bitterness, so little aggressiveness, or hint of coerciveness.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Conwell. I'm superintendent of Unalaska City School District. I believe this is the second year we've sponsored a poetry and essay contest for the students. And I want to start by thanking Amy Forebstern, our 7th through the 9th grade English teacher, for promoting this in her writing classes. This year we had, I think, about a dozen entries. They were all really great pieces. The planning committee and myself had a very difficult time trying to narrow those down to 3, but we did. And our winners who will read their, they just all have to be poems this time. And there's it's a very open-ended assignment. We just say write on cultural diversity and tolerance, and there's no minimum amount of words or stanzas. It's just purely up to the student. So our winners who will read their poems tonight, and I think you're going to really enjoy these. In 3rd place was Daisy Gomez. She will receive a $25 check, and I'm sure all these students will put these checks in their college savings accounts. Harley Ruckman, 2nd place, and a $50 prize. Those 2 students are both 7th graders. And our 1st place winner is an 8th grader, Ashley Paree, and she'll receive $100. Please enjoy these poems. I think you'll really be touched by the message of tolerance.
Well, the title of my poem is Judging the Wrong Diversity. We think that there will always be the key to non-judging diversity. When he spoke his words, it was plain to see a war would start between me and me. No one should judge me for my skin color disparity, just for my different human personality. To me, there is nothing of cultural diversity, just the respect of everyone's emotional hospitality. Everyone should be treated the same because they'll become important to life someday. All people will be important to me, no matter how different they all are from me. I respect all diversity. Small, short, skinny, and tall shouldn't bother anyone at all. Every day you'll see some little kid being shamed, but then we all know there are thousands the same. We look as life is just a game. I just wish we could all live the same. Everyone should care for you in every single way. The world might not seem to change around you, but one day you'll notice that that was never true. Because every day people live with hopes and dreams, hoping the world will change with the help of you and me.
My name is Harley Ruckman, and my poem is called Martin Luther King Dream in my words. We the people, we are all different in many ways. Our skins are different colors, there are different cultures, but why are we this way to other human beings? So I have a dream, just like Martin Luther King. I have a dream that one day my world's people will stop being disgraced. I have a dream that one day my world's people will not be not be made fun of because of the color of their skin. I have a dream that the wars will end over religion. I have a dream that humans won't be tortured because of their religion. I have a dream that gangs against other races will stop. I have a dream that people's skin color doesn't affect how they are treated or what education they have. I have a dream. I have a dream that humans with different beliefs would stop being hurt, being or killed. I have a dream. And that is my dream, that the world will have no racism. I have a dream that the people of the world will stop fighting. I have a dream that countries will get along with each other, no matter how they look or what they are. I have a dream that all men will be treated fairly and they're same no matter what the color of their skin is. I have a dream that all women, no matter what they are, have equal rights as the opposite gender. I have a dream. I have a dream.
My name is Ashley, and I have written a poem called Love Between Other Races. Why do we hate one another? We are all human beings. We are all different colors. But it doesn't matter. Everybody has a voice to speak up to each other. We all should accept each other. We should not judge. The color of their skin or how people look. We should love one another and get to know each other. We are seeing a lot of wars around the world, seeing too much hatred. Well, please just try to see how we are all similar. If you only have love for your own race, then you have space to discriminate against others. You have to have love to set everything straight, to tell the people that you can care about other race, not just your own. We ask our Father of love, so let the people open their eyes, see what they're doing to each other. Someday this world will be gone with its sins. This world will show love for other races.
here he is, one more time, coming to bat, a champion who we will always hold high in our regards, Ralph David Allen.
We must make a cry so loud that it is heard from the length and breadth of America to every mountaintop all across the land. We must be engaged in a struggle for freedom. I call upon you, my brothers and sisters, to join in the crusade all around this nation for freedom, justice, and equality. Thank you so very much.
Hi, my name is Carl. I believe there are so many good things about living in Nebraska. There are so many different kinds of people living here. The first thing I saw for this speech is culture. If people living in a place like Nebraska with many different kinds of people, they realize the importance of cultural diversity, such as different styles of clothing, different languages, different lifestyles, and so on. The good thing about cultural diversity in Nebraska is that people get to understand other cultures and learn from each other. This is important because this is how knowledge about other cultures expands. Another good thing about living in Nebraska is even though we all have different skin colors, we all see each other as human. When people discriminate against each other instead of communicating with each other here, it is seen as wrong. Living here in Nebraska, I have had the opportunity to learn about many different cultures and to make many different friends from many different places. I have learned a lot about myself and about other people. This is why Nebraska is a great place.
And I am the English as a second language teacher at the high school. And I'm going to apologize ahead of time if I start coughing and sneezing. I have the Dutch Harbor crud, and it seems as if my DayQuil has chosen right now to wear off. Anyway, okay, so reflection is actually more of an observation of this fantastic community that we live in. Unalaska sits on a very small sliver of land. On this sliver is a dynamic and a diverse community that has a lot to teach just about anywhere else. Within our sphere are hundreds of different languages and dialects, cultures from around the world, and very varied worldviews. It's not only this concentration that makes us unique, it's the fact that we come together seamlessly and it actually works. Unalaska has the very definition of community. Major cities spend millions and many person hours on community building initiatives. But here on our little sliver, we have it. I believe that this is because we do live in such close proximity to one another. We have no choice but to reach out and to understand. We also have a community full of intelligent, thoughtful, and independent people. It is our sense of adventure in living on a remote island that keeps us open to each other and cognizant of what we have in common. People here in Unalaska care about one another and help each other without missing a beat. That is community. I feel lucky to live here. I know many fellow Unalaskans who feel the exact same way. It is our diverse community and the experiences that we share that keep us living here, and it's also these same reasons that keep people coming back. Thank you.
meantime, if we can get everyone who wore any type of cultural, traditional cultural gear, garments, you all can line up across the back. While they're getting lined up, I just want to thank the community for showing up tonight. I've been here in Alaska for almost 5 years, and as I talked a little bit about earlier, one of the first things that grabbed my attention that was completely unexpected was how diverse Alaska is. And I was shocked that we didn't have some type of day where we actually celebrate the number of different cultures that are here. As you see by tonight's performances, we have a number of different spiritual beliefs, cultural, races, geographical. It's just a very diverse, unique place. Who would think that in the middle of the Bering Sea, this remote island, far away from the natural community as diverse as ours. So I wanted to get together a few lives of MLK holiday, Martin Luther King, one of my heroes, to actually celebrate the cultural diversity in Alaska. Here we're free, and hopefully this event will just keep growing and becoming a lot. So thank you.
As we conclude this evening, I'm going to take the opportunity just to recognize the members of the planning committee for this evening. And I'm going to have to take it on faith that you're standing when I call your name, because I can't see a soul out there right now. Mandy Anderson. City of Unalaska, Department of Parks, Culture, and Recreation, the Grand Illusion Hotel and Unity Incorporated, the Unalaska Corporation, Unalaska City School District, and the Unalaskans Against Sexual Assault and Family Violence. I wanted to finish by giving a list of the various cultures that I was aware of on the island, and I started a list. Jeff, you said you got to 19. I'm not quite certain where I got to, but I had a problem in two, because first off, I realized that I was going to miss somebody because I don't know everyone. And secondly, I got to myself, and I wasn't sure what to list. I come from Pennsylvania, and in the Pennsylvania Dutch country, the best we have to offer are whoopie pies, Fosnox, and hogmaw, only two of which I would actually recommend. But it is an amazing thing to be able to pull together and acknowledge the diversity that is here and the ways that we are all able to live together in such a phenomenal community. I can't tell you how many times I've heard in different ways how often people are amazed at how well this community gets together, gets to function together, and we live together in various ways. As we celebrate the diversity in this community, and we desire the equality for every person, it is with frustration sometimes that we pick up the newspaper, get online, and turn on the television, and learn of, I said racially motivated as I wrote it down, but it's really hate-motivated crimes, attacks, murders, verbal attacks, and it seems to happen on a daily basis. Perhaps the most divisive area of our country right now is not racial, cultural, or geographic, but political. Of course, it's hard not to acknowledge that much of the political conflict and disparity in the country today encompasses racial, cultural, and geographical issues. While the recent attack on Congresswoman Giffords and the others are shocking as they are tragic, perhaps it is not something that we should be surprised by. When our goal is power and greed, we create division. When we push forward ourselves and those that look like us, sound like us, and live like us, we create suspicion and fear. When we allow ignorance to guide us and forget that sense of common humanity that each one of us carries, the natural state to fall back on is violence and hatred. We want to take a moment of silence to remember those who lost their lives in the Arizona shootings, for Congresswoman Giffords as she continues to struggle for strength, and for all of those who are the victims of hatred and violence, either physically, emotionally, socially. I want to encourage you also to take this moment as a time of reflection. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." As we celebrate diversity and the gifts of this amazing community we do live in, we need to examine our own attitudes and thoughts, seeking light and love over darkness and hatred. Let's take a moment. As we go now, let us seek the light that drives out darkness, the love that drives out hate. Our community, in response, each one of us, strives when the whole of us is strong, and struggles when all of us and one of us is left behind. Let's leave the celebration strengthened and united. Thank you, and thank everyone who participated.
This program was made possible in part by the City of Unalaska and from the support of viewers like you.